Good morning. It's 10 a.m. Wednesday, March 5th. This is a meeting of the Administration Committee. I'd like to call the meeting to order, acknowledge that the press and the public were duly notified of the meeting in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. We have two members present and do expect the third, but we have a quorum to move forward. The first item on the agenda is the election of a vice chair.
You want to hold that till you have three members? Or do you want to?
Give her like 5 minutes,
Yeah,
'cause I had something I wanted to discuss under that, but,
Okay.
could we give her like 5 minutes?
Yeah, we can come back to it whenever she gets here then. The next item is approval of the previous meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Any changes, or I second the motion. Any changes or modifications? All right. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
All right.
New business, there's no old business. New business is review the 10-year capital plan.
Mr. Chairman, I was wondering if this time if you would entertain a motion to suspend the rules of order and go to item 6. And as we previously discussed it, in your opinion, I agree, there's no reason to go into executive session. But seeing as the weather so iffy, we got some people from out of town, I'd like to make a motion that we would suspend the rules and go directly to the interview of firms for federal lobbyists.
I'm fine with that. I second the motion. Favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, we'll just move into the interviews then. And we are interviewing a second firm too.
They're
on
going to be,
standby?
yep,
Okay.
they're on standby,
All right.
virtual.
Yep.
I don't know if we have,
Here, we can take this.
Linda, Chris, y'all want to, if there's room up here, y'all come on up. So the first group is the Ferguson Group, and I think they've been, I think we're all aware that we're considering engaging a federal lobbyist in coordination with the Water and Sewer Commission. So we have Chris Jordan and Linda Tucker representing them here today. And I just asked that they give kind of a brief overview of their services and what they could do for the two agencies, and then would open it up for questions that you all may have for them. So with that, I don't know if Roger or Wayne?
Yeah, I'll just start. My name is Roger Gwynn, and we appreciate the opportunity to be with you here today. I'm the CEO of the Ferguson Group, and I'll let my colleagues introduce themselves briefly, and then we'll give you a brief overview of our services.
I'm Charmaine Anderson. I'm one of the partners at the Ferguson Group.
And Lane Dixon, also a partner at the Ferguson Group. Thank you so much for having us.
So we're just going to, again, give you a brief overview of the firm and then our services, our approach to providing federal advocacy and grant-related services. The firm, Ferguson Group, has been around for about 34 years, so we represent over 200 public agencies in 34 states. We have over 44 professional staff that we focus on, we are a bipartisan firm. And we have folks that specialize in really all of the issues of interest to local governments, public agencies, whether it's, again, water resources, transportation, economic development, public safety, resource-related concerns. So, really cover the waterfront of issues that are important to local governments. We're a little different than a lot of the most firms that provide these services. We have two different divisions. We have an advocacy division that provides services that are related to again, dealing with Congress and the federal agencies directly in an advocacy manner. And then we also do a division that focuses on grants and helping our clients to secure resources directly through competitive grants and loans. So in terms of our success rate, it's very high. We've worked with our clients over the last several years to secure over $6 billion in assistance through competitive grants and loans. And in terms of the congressional earmark process, which is the directed spending process, which was reinstituted in fiscal year 2022, we've helped our clients secure over $300 million in assistance under that process. We have quite a few that are pending in the current FY25 process as well. But with that, let me just say one other thing in terms of communities. We do, Richard, that we've represented over 200-plus public agencies across the country. We do represent a number of communities that are very similar to the city of Isle of Palms. We represent a number of coastal communities. We're very familiar with coastal-related concerns. It's an area of really one of our growing specialty within the overall water resources-related area. We represent, just as an example, represent the city of Holden Beach, town of Holden Beach, the Bald Head Island. Both of those are in North Carolina, Surf City, North Carolina. We do work for Mount Pleasant here in your backyard as well as Cheraw here in the state of South Carolina, and do some work further south in the Beaufort area as well on the water side. So in any case, we're certainly familiar with the types of concerns that your community has, and we think that we can certainly assist you in dealing with issues at the federal level and securing resources for your priority projects. With that, let me turn it over to Charmaine, who's going to tell you a little bit about our process that we go through working with clients.
Yeah, and I think also in addition to just our experience working with other communities similar to the Isle of Palms, we do, because of that, we have a great working relationship with the congressional delegation, so both senators and Congresswoman Mace in particular. Over the years that we've worked, hand in glove with them on a number of, key priorities for the communities we represent. One of the key, just a quick overview of just how we do what we do. We really kind of come in and meet not only with the departments, but certainly, you all as elected officials to understand what the key priorities are here in the community. And then together collectively with not only us, but our team within the Ferguson Group, both our advocacy side and our grants division, really see where there's some federal, synergy as where we, can find and see there be potential opportunities, whether it is through the congressional directed spending process, whether it's through a congressional authorization process where they're authorizing key projects for federal funding, whether it's through obviously grant funding. Our grants division not only looks at federal grants, oftentimes they will, mark a state grant or even a foundation grant to align with key priorities. So together we're kind of coming to you to kind of really understand all the ins and outs of what those priorities are. And then again, like I said, layer that with where we see opportunities, and we come together and put together what we call as a federal agenda or a work plan that really kind of scopes out what the priorities are, where we see those opportunities, and then how best to kind of go about, securing those opportunities. And certainly it's a document, as we say, it's a livable document, so it can always be modified as new priorities come online or others that need to come off. So it's kind of this kind of ongoing process, but we really like to have something solidified so we kind of understand where we need to put all our areas of interest and time. With that being said, once that's established, we then kind of work with you to develop kind of this advocacy plan of sorts where, again, is it, we need to make sure we engage with the delegation. We need to go inside the federal agencies and really speak to what those challenges are or projects are or programs are that are part of that work plan and see where there's opportunities where we might need the federal agencies to engage, again, whether it's from a regulatory standpoint, if there's waivers and things of that sort that we've worked with too that need to be also engaged with. And certainly, committees on the Hill. And it also doesn't just stop at the congressional delegation. There's certainly committees that align with some of the key priorities that you all would have that we want to make sure that the community is engaged with as well. And then with that too, this is like an ongoing process, particularly with the congressional directed spending process. There are deadlines that we also make sure that we are fully aware of and make sure that we are working in preparation for that. I mean, I know with your community, most of those type of projects would go through Senator Graham. The Senate process is much slower than the House process, so it has not begun yet. So it's a perfect time to really engage an organization like ours to kind of work with you. And then, of course, our grants team is constantly looking at opportunities to make sure that you all are aware of them. we always say, working in that grant space, it's always 2/3 preparation, 1/3 writing it. So there is where we, if there's an opportunity that we know is coming down the pike months from now, our grants team will be there to kind of walk you through and make sure that you're fully prepared to apply for those opportunities. And certainly, again, outside of positioning, the projects and programs and things of that sort, to make sure that, you'll be hopefully successful in the end, there is this advocacy component that involves you, where you would come to Washington and meet with the right folks. We like to say, put you in front of the right person at the right time with the right message, and we're going to help you with that message, and we're going to provide you with the talking points and prepare all the documentation. And even with the congressional directed spending, we fill out all the forms. We just work with you to make sure that the project that we're putting forth is solid enough where we can then put everything together and submit it for you, and then work with you about, the right types of support letters and things of that sort that will be needed. And then last but not least, from a communication standpoint, we are hands-on. You'll get tired of hearing from us because between our weekly publications and things that we put out, and certainly we make sure that there's constant communication. We oftentimes, let our clients tell us what's best for them as far as that feedback, where, I know some clients I do weekly calls with, some I do bi-monthly calls with. It's just all in what you would like to kind of, the cadence of that to make sure everybody's on the same page and that we're always in constant communication about the way forward. And again, we just, tons of publications, I can't stress that enough, about from a legislative standpoint, we do a weekly grants update, so in that week what has come out. And again, just making sure that you're always abreast of what's going on in Washington. So that's kind of it in a nutshell, and I'll pass it on to Lane, who can kind of speak to some of our experiences and how best they kind of align with some of the things that we understand that you all are interested in.
Great, thanks so much, and I really appreciate it again, you having us here on this stormy day. It's kind of cool to watch. Hopefully it stays. But, maybe I shouldn't say that. So Roger mentioned, we've always had a focus on local communities, local government, and that's been really our bread and butter for the history of the firm. And I think that's reflected in the successes and experiences that we have. And there's a list of kind of, I would say, our brag sheet on the back page that I won't go through point by point. It's there for your reference. But I think a couple of things I would point out is, as you can see, if you go through that, we really do specialize on this water, wastewater, stormwater, environmental restoration, and coastal protection kind of category of projects. It's a large part of what we do for a lot of clients across the country, and because of that, we have a really good insight and ability to kind of look at larger projects and break them apart when they're needed to maximize federal funding. And that's why you see some of the big numbers that you see in terms of successes with our clients, is because we're able to go after more opportunities because we can kind of see all of the different moving pieces. But also, of course, there's a lot of, you guys are dealing with a lot of issues, not just the big infrastructure issues. So as Roger mentioned, we also know a lot, there's always going to be a focus on public safety and economic development, tourism, transportation. Those are things that always need to get done, and there are a lot of opportunities in that. So as you kind of look at that, I think the one thing I would say is a big reason that I think we're successful and have been this successful is our approach, which Charmaine just went through, but also just being, making sure we're constantly monitoring, right? We're present, so we will be your eyes in and out of Washington. We'll be able to, in real time, identify opportunities, but also threats that may come to funding and moving things forward, whether that be funding related or regulatory, right? Whether even if it's things like permitting or things that may be coming your way from the federal side that are going to have an impact and really influence the work that you have to do. So those are that is a huge component of what we do, is kind of be this constant view into Washington and then communication out. We've also, our experience with the 40 members of the team, 40 plus members of the TFG team, many of us have done these jobs in the federal agencies and on Capitol Hill. And so we're able to really help your delegation help you. I mean, that's really our approach. We want to be part of your team so that we understand all of your priorities and can present that to the Hill. But in a lot of cases, there's some, there's people that don't have the experience. They may not even be from here. And we can also be a part of their team to help them navigate these often complex processes of Congress, and make sure that they're really well prepared to fight for your priorities and get things done. So I think those are two big components of our success. And then the last thing I would mention on that is that I think being, as Roger mentioned, being that one-stop shop where we can do congressionally directed spending, we can do just normal appropriations, right? Programmatic appropriations where we go in and advocate for higher funding levels for programs that can help you in your priorities, along with things like authorizations to make sure we're opening every avenue available for federal funding available in like the Water Resources Development Act and transportation bills and things like that. And then, of course, the competitive grant side. And when you can put all those together, it opens up a lot more opportunities. Certain things work well for one, certain avenues work well for one project or one phase of a project, and certain programs work good for other phases. So we really take that comprehensive view, and I think that's reflected in kind of our sheet there. So, did you want to add
Maybe
anything on that?
just one other point that is referenced in our proposal, just by one line, but there's a reference to a couple people that are not officially part of the team, but again, you're going to have access to everybody within the firm. And two people I just want to bring to your attention are Earl Stockdale, who's the former general counsel for the Corps of Engineers, and Brad Schwichtenberg, who's the former regional integration team leader within the headquarters for the Corps of Engineers. And these are folks, Brad's actually a specialist in shoreline protection related concerns. That's his real background. But he has this policy background also as well, and knows the ins and outs within the building, within the Corps and all that. And obviously Earl Stockdale is the former general counsel for the Corps, does as well. And those are folks that would be, we would engage very directly with you as well to understand fully all of your needs relative to shoreline protection related concerns, all the issues you deal with in terms of integration with the ongoing navigation projects where you're taking sand, from Corps projects and things of that sort, all those types of issues. And just to make sure that you're maximizing your access to the opportunities of engaging with the Corps. And, one other thing in terms of shoreline protection in particular, we also, pride ourselves on working with our clients to identify really unique sources of funding for these types of issues, because those are challenging concerns, right? And as an example, we've worked with one of our clients to access USDA money, community facilities dollars. These are loan dollars, but to support the shoreline protection work. We've accessed NOAA dollars, and NOAA actually is a source of funding that can be earmarked through the congressionally directed spending process for shoreline protection. So it's a different source of funding. And so we will look at all of these different opportunities, every angle on whatever priority project that you bring to us. We'll certainly look for innovative ways to advance them. So we're happy to answer any questions that you may have. And again, appreciate the opportunity to be with you.
Can we share? Okay, thank you. As one who's often listening to these meetings, I know that if a person's not on the mic, then the people who might be listening are not hearing anything that's being said. So I'm here along with Chris representing Isle of Palms Water and Sewer. And so I do have about 6 questions based on reading your very impressive proposal, and I'm extremely grateful to the chair and to the city and to you all to have this opportunity to question you about the proposal. And the proposal, and also what you're saying, obviously is, full of successes that you've had, and those are undeniable. And we may be fortunate to be able to work with you, but I feel like there's probably been some missteps along the way that you guys have learned from. And I wonder if you could recount some of those, or one of those in particular that was a misstep for you and a client you're representing, and then how you recovered from that.
I mean, I'm perfect. Do you want to go? I think that, there's certainly examples, I think, where, and things that we've learned from as a firm where where what we've kind of bought in or not advised to not rush into a project, either whether it's for funding or getting authorization before, without kind of putting together the full strategy, making sure it's the right course of action. There's kind of this common thing in the federal government that, at least in my experience, that sometimes if you try to go faster, you actually end up going slower. If you try to go around something or go, through a wall rather than moving the wall or whatever. And so I think that there's been times when perhaps we've kind of gone full throttle without taking a second to make sure we're going in the right direction. And that's something that we actually really make sure we put a lot of emphasis on both the earmark and grant side.
And I think also just from a policy perspective, I mean, Roger and I work on another client on the West Coast, and, one of those similarly, as far as kind of going forward and, you kind of got a strategy plan, we're really not looking outside of the scope of that strategy per se, and kind of understanding how that other party, i.e. the federal agency, is going to either interpret certain laws and things of that sort, where you kind of think we're all on the same page. And so that becomes kind of eye-opening too, and there might be ways where you need to kind of sit back for a moment, re-engage. And, we've had to kind of engage with the congressional delegation again to get another type of law in place in order for this agency to understand the interpretation of how to move a project forward. So it does oftentimes where we have to kind of sit back and go, well, wait, the strategy is what we thought was the right way. We think everybody's on the same page. There's some ways where we need to kind of step back a moment and see if there's other tentacles to it that need to be put in place in order to move that project forward. And now we've kind of gotten to a point where we have really moved this project above and beyond what we've done. This project's probably been on the books 20 plus years that I've been with the firm. I've been with the firm 30. And so again, just understanding that there's oftentimes other things that we need to kind of look outside the scope of where we currently are that could even move something a little quicker or more expedient.
Those are both great examples. I have several more questions,
Yes,
unless
please.
you have something
It's just
earth-shattering.
amplifying.
So you have talked about, in your proposal, talked about developing a strategy. And I think you guys have a term for it that it was a new term to me. But are these annual? Do you do these annually with your client and then evaluate them at the end of a year term?
Very good question. I'll just real quickly say, most often, we will meet toward the end of a year, calendar year, and really kind of not only overview kind of what the year has brought us and where we are, but look ahead. And that's when we really are then at that point where we're sitting and coming here and getting a little more insight as to where the priorities are, what to look ahead, what are you looking at short-term, long-term in those latter months of the year, like October, November, December-ish, in order by January to have that federal agenda or work plan in place.
Federal.
So again, but to the point of just our engagement with you all, like we said, even then, because we're in a new administration, there's a lot of changes and things of that sort, that we are in a kind of a sweet spot to kind of start that process now. So to say you're not behind in the process, and we're working even to this day with current clients, existing clients, in that similar process.
So I would just say, like, at least once a year, because
Yeah.
sometimes
Yeah.
things just change,
Right.
right? I mean, a priority or an event or something. So
Correct.
we typically update that at least once a year.
Every year.
Sometimes nothing changes, sometimes a ton changes, so it just
Right.
depends.
So I also wanted to mention, this is kind of an unusual situation, but something to be proud of, in that we're talking about two separate entities who have separate elected bodies engaging a firm themselves as a joint action. And I just wonder if you have any other clients, because you basically are going to be working for one community, but basically two different missions, two different serious needs, that you would be working on. Do you have examples of other clients that have these cooperative contracts?
Most of the situations, we have a lot of clients that have responsibility for wastewater, water supply, stormwater concerns underneath a larger contract that provides services on a broader array of services like economic development, transportation, what have you. And normally, it's a single entity, that's covering both. But, again, we certainly cover all these types of issues in one situation. We do have some clients that, we have separate contracts with them where we represent a council of governments, a city, a community, and a county, all in the same area, and they're all coordinated in terms of their federal agendas, but they actually are just separate contracts. Frankly, having it on a unified basis is not a problem at all. Again, covering multiple issues, and anyway, it's not a concern with us.
Probably
It's more cost
effective. I mean,
effective.
in some of those instances, it might make sense for them to do one, but,
Right.
and I also think the other example, I mean, we have a lot of, we represent joint powers type agencies where there's multiple, public entities as part of one project, or, that's come together as a JPA or something of those sorts, or coalitions, or even, special districts, right, that are made up of other special districts. So we have a lot of experiences where we're dealing with multiple governing bodies to come together on a unified mission and a unified agenda. It's just the structure depends, and it's actually one thing that we kind of always are happy that we can do with a firm our size, is structure things how you need it.
So you also mentioned that you have staff strategically placed all over the nation. And I just wondered if you have any in South Carolina. I didn't see that
No.
claimed.
Yeah, we have one of our grant staff, senior grants managers, is based in Columbia, actually, so, and she's done, so we have some people here, but, it's just not, on the advocacy side, we make a point of coming to, our clients on a regular basis. We have clients that are generally in this area, that obviously in your immediate area with Mount Pleasant, but, in the area, and so that wouldn't be an issue in terms of being present physically here.
I'm about to wrap it up. And maybe someone else has. For a community this size, both on the water and sewer side and the island, and we have a very engaged community, the proposals are expensive. And so I think the very first thing that comes to a taxpayer's mind is, what is the return on the investment for, the thing that you would want to see is that at the end of 12 months, you have more than exceeded what you've invested in the contract. And so I just wondered if you guys could speak to that. Do you track that kind of success? Because no one in submitting these proposals seemed to want to, they talked about aggregate money, but nobody wanted to say our return on investment for all of our clients hovers at about this amount of money. Something that is reassuring to those who might be looking at a contract of this significant size, that, hey, we get our money back in 1 year or more.
Right. I mean, generally, this is the way we look at it. I mean, generally, you really shouldn't engage in this process unless you're ready to invest in it for 2 years, okay, just to start with, because it's going to take a little bit of time to get started.
So a
and for
2-year
you
return on
to get, that return. I mean, historically, we've seen more than 10 times a return on the investment that's been made over a 2-year period in these services through a combination of congressionally directed spending and/or competitive grant funding. But we strive for a much higher rate of return, frankly, and many of our clients have a much higher rate than even 10 times. I mean, it's, anyway, very, very high. So, and our contracts, we recommend, and, we want an annual agreement, and we want to, renew that each year. Obviously, we work very, very hard to do that, and to win your trust, and to move forward on an ongoing basis. We have clients that we've worked with. Charmaine mentioned one, again, on the West Coast Ocean side. I was actually Oceanside in California, which is one we've been working on shoreline-related issues for decades. But that's the point. We've been working with them for decades on these issues. But, we really do, these are generally contracts that can be canceled on 30 days' notice. And, if there's dissatisfaction at any point in time, that they can be canceled, immediately. But again, we work very hard to show a very clear our return on the investment that's made in these services.
And just to reiterate on that point, I mean, our goal too is just to be, truly good stewards to the community And similar to Roger's point, I mean, our goal also is to make sure that we hopefully can have a long-standing relationship. And again, some of the communities I work with, we've been working with since late 80s, early 90s, and myself included, I've been working with a number of them since the early 90s. And that's the goal, is to really be part of the community so we can kind of grow and understand and really support the community in all aspects. So I just want to make sure that we highlight that point. I mean, we're not here to kind of be here for the moment, but we want to make sure that we can hopefully have a long-lasting relationship.
Well, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have. I don't know if Chris has. Thank you so much.
A lot of good questions, but Linda, where's your main office? Is it Northern Virginia?
Yeah, well, that's in DC, Washington, DC.
You're right in DC.
Yeah, it's a couple of blocks down from the White
I
House.
moved down here from Alexandria a long time ago. I worked in Old Town, Columbus Street. Lived down near Mount Vernon. How long has the firm been around? You said you've been around 30 years?
Yeah.
32, sir.
Okay.
So the firm was founded in 82. So,
Yeah.
so just, 42
Linda
years.
covered everything I had, Mr. Chairman.
I just have I want to explore a little bit about the process a little more.
Yeah.
Just not being that familiar with federal lobbying, would any funding, whatever the source, initiate from a South Carolina congressional, either a senator or the congressman?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And just Senator Graham, for example, it's congressionally directed spending is what the Senate calls it. Anyway, we call it just colloquially earmarked dollars. These are dollars in the appropriations process that are set aside out of the total amount of money that's allocated for discretionary spending. And what we're most interested in is domestic discretionary spending. Those categories of funding don't generally go after defense dollars, even dollars that are, through the Corps of Engineers. That's in the civilian side of their budget, so it's domestic discretionary spending. And those dollars can be set aside for a community within the total amount of money provided for communities. And the Congress has internal rules where they limit, generally anyway, in the current process, they'll limit total allocation of federal funding to to no more than 1% of domestic discretionary spending. So within that total amount of money, though, your delegation would go secure funding, and we would identify priorities that would match up with opportunities for them to direct funding. And
So you work with the agencies, whatever the agency, whether EPA or whatever, from a standpoint of identified funding, and then link us one of the congressional targets to.
Yeah, well, that's actually a separate, that also occurs, but that's a separate process from, I think, what you're asking, which is in the appropriations process, it's really focused on the congressional annual appropriations cycle, right? So they have different accounts, line items and things like that only some of them are open for directed spending, other ones are closed. They have a lot of, the rules have become tighter and tighter over the years to make sure that dollars are going to the places that they should be, right? And the idea there is that, the people in the state or the member in the district knows the needs better than the federal agencies in many cases, and so they can set aside some dollars within the overall spending to go to a specific project. And the accounts and the funding, the agency is one of the things, but then there's accounts within the agency and then line items. So it's kind of this mapping of priorities.
And I guess what I'm getting at is our rate of success purely related to how influential our particular our delegation is, as opposed to any work you do? Or, I mean, if you have a very strong senator or a very strong congresswoman or congressman, it seems like they may be able to get, if we're just going to them and say, hey, Alapalms needs some money to do some sewer work.
Right.
And you convince them to do that, depending on their power within the Senate or the House, really dictates how successful we are.
Was part of it, I mean, that is certainly a factor. So,
It helps
Senator
that.
Graham is extremely successful within the Senate as a whole on behalf of the state of South Carolina. There's no doubt about it, that in the congressionally directed spending process. The other factor, though, is what we've talked about in terms of what we view ourselves as an extension of your staff and an extension of their staffs. And Lane talked a little bit about this in terms of, we want to help them help you. And that's it. But it's all about them in terms of the congressionally directed spending. We're not taking credit for any of those successes. Those are their successes. Without them, you would not be successful. And but in any case, what we're going to do is help you identify opportunities for funding where they can help you and give you help you organize the requests in such a way that it will be something that they'll be receptive to and that they can actually act on. And a lot of people will just frankly, and again, we've been on the Hill, all of us, and so, there are communities that will come to you and just say, I have a problem, with not giving you a solution, taking you a solution to how to solve that problem. What we do is arm you with a solution that will work and that, has been proven to be successful. One other point, though, it is absolutely the case, though, too, that we are, as part of that, developing the solution that will work. There is interaction with the agencies. That's helpful. In many instances, we need their support back to the committees of jurisdiction. Senator Graham's going to maybe submit a request on your behalf. That's going to go to a committee that is then going to reach out to the agency to get their input on it. So we're going to work both sides of this, work with the agency, work with you to work with the agency to help them understand the priorities of the projects and how this can work and get their support for that overall effort as well.
Do you have any concerns about this Department of Governmental Efficiency?
Yeah, we have concerns about it. It's a very, it's interesting there, but a lot of this.
Waited too long to ask that.
Yeah, right. A lot of this is all getting sorted out, obviously, over time, and there are issues, there are monies that are on pause right now. There are dollars that, could potentially be a benefit to you right now, and things like, that are through NOAA and things like that. But a lot of this is just they're under a review process.
A lot of smoke right now.
Yeah, right. A lot of,
The dust definitely needs to settle before
Right.
we really know how to, what it all means. I mean, I think there's gonna be some probably slimming in some areas, but there's also gonna be streamlining in others. So in certain ways, it seems like over the years, that's often what is happening, right? Maybe
Especially
there's
during a new administration.
especially during a new administration.
Yes.
And it's a little bit, frankly, some of this is a little bit normal, but it's being played out in the public a little bit more. Other parts of it are certainly more aggressive and things like that and a little bit more splashy, but there's some level of this that we're kind of used to in every administration.
Sure, yeah.
every new administration pauses funding generally on a lot of these
Yeah, we
areas
gonna
for
fix everything.
review.
Yeah.
And in
Just
many
doesn't
And they
quite-
changed the name,
It
like,
was,
Yeah,
in the
exactly.
grid space, a lot of it'll
Yeah.
just be
Priorities.
repackaged, renamed, but still the same process and program.
And we saw that instantly, for example, in what was called RAISE in the Biden administration, a transportation grant opportunity, and that was changed back to BUILD, which was the prior Trump administration characterization of it with some new eligibility criteria and priorities within that program.
Well, that's good to know, thank you.
One
Sure.
tiny, I'm kind of a closet numbers person. Councilmember Ward is the real numbers person, but on your proposal, you didn't detail out, what you guys charge in terms of expenses. If you have to come here a half dozen times, things like that. On a proposed contract roughly this size, in terms of the city and the Isle of Palms Water and Sewer budgeting, how much additional should they consider, to put in their budgets? And then the reverse of that, because I know the city is working on their budget now. Isle of Palms Water and Sewer will be working on theirs. And so when they build their budgets, it sounds like there's gonna be at least 1 or 2 trips for a group to Washington, so they will need to up their travel budget by whatever it's gonna take. So do you have any advice on those numbers.
Just in
So-
term, you know, in terms of our expenses that we would, reimbursable costs.
Right, exactly.
For us, I would just say if you opted for the combined contract that we had recommended, there would be no expenses. That'll be inclusive of all expenses. And in terms of, you know, we can, and in terms of your cost, obviously, we can, you know, we can assist you a little bit here and there with things like our, you know, assistance on hotels and recommendations and things
And
of that
also,
sort.
we try
but,
to also, if possible, align any advocacy in Washington with when you're already going to be there. So oftentimes,
groups.
some of our clients are in town for various conferences and things of that sort, so we try to maximize the time there and get meetings within, you know, on the Hill or in the agencies in particular.
Yeah, if any group, part of the group is involved, you know, in DC for other types of meetings, we would take advantage of that to add on. But, you know, we do like to have it be ideal. It's ideal to have a single
Yeah.
trip once a year at
At
least.
least once a year.
At least
Yeah,
once a year.
yeah.
At least.
To DC.
So for budgeting purposes.
Correct, and we.
Some
and-
numbers.
Right, and oftentimes we like to have that once-a-year trip, like in the first quarter of the year, like, you know, at least definitely by the end of April, because that's when Congress most often is working on their own budget, and so we like to kind of get in and speak to about projects in particular, because the earmarking process is ramping up.
And when, you know, you're, you know, maybe that's not going to work for you, that timing, right, this year. And so maybe it may be that some of these meetings would happen virtually
Virtually.
this year, next year, and maybe a follow-on meeting might be later on this year when things are still kind of in play. But nonetheless, you know, you would come in to emphasize the importance of your particular priorities that we're engaged in at that point in time. And building, part of this too is, you know, is building those relationships with federal agencies at the headquarters level as well. And we could, you know, and that would, that may
That's
be
huge.
part of what would be done in the first year in particular.
That's helpful, thank you.
My question kind of centered around that a little bit, so just wondering in regards to this year,
Oh,
is it too late to apply for funding, or is there like a certain
Absolutely not.
timeframe when you?
Absolutely not. And again, because we're, you know, we're in a new administration, and like we had kind of commented, kind of every 4 years, we go through this phase where it's kind of this start and stop, where they're kind of, you know, reassessing, you know, where things are as an administration, how they want to overlay their own priorities. You know, even with the grant situation, things are kind of on pause until they look to, again, where funding's going to go, how programs are going to be reshaped. So yeah, certainly not, you're not behind the eight ball at all as it relates to, you know, again, the earmarking process, but then also, again, to Roger's point, we really like to have you all engaging with these agencies to kind of speak to projects and programs and the potential of kind of what is out there. Again, from just my own experiences working with, you know, the city of Oceanside in particular, you know, they constantly come into Washington to meet with the Bureau of Reclamation. They have been highly successful working with that agency and highly successful in grant opportunities because, again, the agency really kind of, again, to that point of relationship building, that's the other thing that is you know, an impediment, just kind of a key milestone for us, for you, is to make sure all those agencies that we want to kind of work with, that they get to know who you are, and they get to understand the kind of the projects and programs that are here in the city. So but they too can then lean on us, lean on you to, you know, vet out opportunities and how best to kind of move forward.
And just to kind of put some specific points, I mean, right now, as we said, Congress hasn't even finished last fiscal year's budget, right? Their spending bills, so they have to do that before they can even open their new one. And then in this transition with administrations, which is very normal, they haven't received the president's budget request, which is really the foundation for where they kind of, that they look to build the top line numbers, which then all tier off. So they have a lot of work to do and like internally before they can even open it to us. Some offices you're seeing open their process just on their normal cadence. Haven't seen that in South Carolina. Some other ones, even though they're just gonna have to come back to everybody, but they've opened it. Like the South Carolina offices are probably waiting till they get guidance, because right now we don't even know, the offices don't even know what they can request yet. So, like we kind of assume it's gonna be similar to last year, but there's always some changes, and so, So there's some time, and it's a really good time to just start laying that groundwork, because we don't like to just lob in the request. I mean, it's good to do that groundwork first, and right now we still have that time, and then after that, we can still kind of approach funding for this fiscal year, even if we don't have that time, and do that after the request, because there is some lag. But anyway, there's a lot of time. It's actually really good timing.
No, it is, and I'll just add a little point to that. Because we've been doing this for so long, we've actually put together kind of a list of types of questions that are posed to to kind of prepare for projects. So that's something that we certainly can start working on now, even though, the House and Senate have not provided the members with guidance, but we have a general sense of the type of questions that are posed to kind of, again, get you all ready for all the type, whatever type of projects that we want to put forward.
And just one last point on that is that we have other processes like the 5-year reauthorization of the transportation bill, and that process is starting now, but actually won't wrap up until next year, but they're already starting hearings on that. So the city's priorities in the transportation area can be advocated in that process. There's also the Water Resources Development Act, which is a bill that authorizes funding through the Corps of Engineers, and that may be something that you would want to look at as well. And there's a grant opportunity or the quasi-grant opportunity that we think that would be a good fit for you going forward as well. And that's something, again, that gets started now, but the final action isn't until next year. So again, the timing is good.
They move at federal government pace.
Slower than state. One more question. If we were to receive funding of any kind, are there reporting requirements that the city would have to do, like us specifically? Just wondering about,
Yeah, if you've engaged a
that-
lobbyist, there is a form that goes along with your entering into a financial assistance agreement with the federal agency, where you have to just acknowledge the fact that you have, it's not.
No, and we
it's-
actually have a
well,
template for you.
I mean,
We can
federal,
make it easy.
federal grants in general have various reporting requirements, if that's what you're asking.
Right, yeah.
Having a lobbying firm on just requires one additional one.
Right.
Which is actually just a disclosure. It's pretty
Right.
simple.
That's all.
But obviously with the post-award side and that compliance side is also something that we do
We can
at the
do.
Ferguson Group. I don't think it's necessary, I mean, some general advice on that is envisioned in the proposal we sent, but that's typically a separate service.
right.
But we have people that just do that.
Yeah.
Because it can be complicated. It really depends on the agency, the grant, the size, I mean, a million different
Right.
things. But there are components of that, and it is different that applies to in a lot of cases to the earmarking side as well. You're really just kind of ensuring that you get a grant in a lot of ways if you think about that. So some of those programs carry similar requirements. Some are easy, some are way too hard. They shouldn't be that hard, but they are.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I think to that point, as we talk about the new administration, some are hard. I mean, obviously, this administration is certainly looking to kind of deregulate a bit, where to hopefully help you be more efficient in utilizing federal dollars and things of that sort. So again, there are areas too where we can work with you to help advocate for as well. I was at the White House recently, and that was one of the key things that was pushed out about kind of, again, if there are areas, whether, again, if it's transportation or water, where there's, something that's impeding your ability to kind of move a project forward, they want to understand what those kind of federal hangups might be.
Oh, and an important point too is that you can build in some of those administrative costs into the grant to help the grant pay for those. You cannot, the disclosure for lobbying is basically specifically says we won't
can't-
use this
right,
for
yeah.
lobbying.
Right.
But that's different from, it would be completely separate from any agreement, which is partially why it's not in the overall arching agreement. But any agreement you had with like a post-award type firm that helped with that could be built in as an administrative cost to a certain, there's different limits and stuff, but well within what.
That are way in the weeds here on this, but fine, let me just say it. We also,
We're all like thinking of like, hey, wait.
we also provide services in the event that you don't have an arrangement with the federal government that maximizes your indirect cost rate allocation. You're basically what you get to keep out of the grant to cover your costs. We can help you with that too. So it's a separate thing, but it's, anyway, it's the kind of thing we do.
But it's important, it's real money.
Yeah. Thank you.
Are there any final thoughts or questions?
You're like, we better not ask another one. We'll just keep going.
Well, thank you for coming in.
Well, thank you so much.
Really
for the-
appreciate you having us.
Yeah, we really
Yeah.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
You all have a safe trip back. And
All right.
able to get back, no problem.
Thank you so much.
So I guess we got a video on the next one, huh?
Just a footnote, I've got an out-of-state client meeting that's coming to be at my office at noon. So this is important, but I just want to let you know my timeline.
We'll see if we can wrap up and get into the other business before that. If not, we can delay it.
Well, I just need like he's just dropping stuff off. He's here on vacation, but he is from out of state. So I just need like a 15-minute recess and I can come right back.
All right.
But I do need to be there when he gets there. I'll allocate more time in the future. I thought 2 hours would be enough.
We can always just recess when we get finished with this, then we can come back.
Yeah, he's
This
coming
may
in
take
noon.
45
Good
minutes.
morning.
That one take.
Can you all hear me?
We can, how are you?
Very well. You're not as big as I would like you to be. Your little cubicles.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Okay, is that what you got
96.
annually?
Yeah, it was
You can
for the
see-
combined, for the
Can everybody see
combined,
that? So-
thing.
Good morning, I'm Douglas Carr. I've been
Our state law
coordinating
has
with
done
you
a
all
really
for this
good job.
meeting. Thank you
Yeah.
for being here. This is the administration committee of the city of Isle of Palms, along with members of the staff of the Water and Sewer Commission. So that's kind of where we are. We were hoping this morning to just hear from you all a summary of what you all think you could do for the city and the Water and Sewer Commission, and then give us an opportunity for question and answers, if that sounds good for you all.
Absolutely, and thank you for the opportunity to be with you all today. I'm sorry we couldn't make it in person, but maybe we'll just start by giving some short introductions on who we are. I'm Chaz Thomas, partner here at Corn Run. I grew up in Greenville, South Carolina, but my dad lives in Allendale and my brother lives downtown Charleston, so very familiar with the area. I've been at Corn Run now a little over 7.5 years. Prior to that, I worked on Capitol Hill for 4 years. And before DC, I worked on Senator Graham's 2014 re-election campaign. So, like I said, very familiar with the area, very familiar with South Carolina as a whole. We do have, at this point, 10 South Carolina entities that we represent here in DC, local government, municipality, side of things. So, that's kind of who I am. I'll turn it over to Jordan and Carmen, and then I want Jim to go last. Jim is the co-lead for our local government and municipality practice here. So Jordan, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Jess. Good morning, everyone. Sorry we couldn't be there today. I was down at Seaweed about 3 weeks ago, and I wish I had another excuse to come down to Charleston. But anyways, I'm born and raised in South Carolina, from Florence, University of South Carolina. Like Chaz, I worked for Senator Graham in 2013 and 2014. I also worked for Senator Graham again in 2016. I joined Bull Run back in November of last year after spending 7 years working for Governor Henry McMaster as his Director of Federal Affairs based in Washington, working with the Governor's Office and all the cabinet officials on all of our, across 25 different agencies on all of our federal requests, whether it be funding, whether it be hurricane response, whether it be COVID. So definitely integrated into the intersection of state government affairs with federal government affairs to kind of match up where the federal funding fits in with state and local projects. With that, I'll pass it over to Carmen, who handles our appropriation policy.
Yeah, hi there. As Jordan mentioned, my name is Carmen, and my job as a legislative assistant here at Thornland Partners mostly involves supporting our local government and appropriations practices. I am responsible for all things federal funding here, including tracking earmarks and assisting clients with appropriation submissions and monitoring the release of federal funding opportunities and creating a grant newsletter that summarizes the most relevant and what their submission process looks like.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hey everyone, Jim Davenport. I am the co-lead of the local government practice group at Thorn Run. I've been at Thorn Run now almost 7 years, but spent over 18 years in another lobbying firm. I've been lobbying on behalf of local governments now for nearly 26 years. I had some time on the Hill before coming to do what I do now. We've got clients all over the country, including several in South Carolina that we'll talk about. So happy to be here today. Sorry I can't be down there. I'm actually running to the Hill with a local government today, so I got to be there in about an hour. So sorry I can't make it.
All right, thank you for the introduction. Do you have any kind of comments you'd like to make on your process, or just elaborate on the proposal that you made?
You want me to walk through, Chaz, a little bit of
It's okay.
I'd be happy to. I'll just do a quick overview of the firm and the local government practice group, maybe just so you have a feel, and just make sure you can all hear me okay, right?
Yes. Yep. Loud and clear.
Okay, yeah, great. Sorry, you guys are back a little far, so it's hard for me to see faces and so forth. So I think Chaz mentioned, so Thorn Run Partners was founded in 2010 as a boutique lobbying firm. So it doesn't seem like we've been around that long, but most of our partners, our senior partners and people like myself started at other lobbying firms around the city and decided to create something a bit more collaborative and unique. Since the founding in 2010, we've grown to a 50-plus person firm now, and we're now ranked the 7th largest lobbying firm in Washington, D.C., which we're very proud of. We're among the top lobbyists ranked by The Hill and the top lobbying firms by the Washington Post. We now have the largest local government practice among the top 20 firms. We've got about 270 clients, and roughly, I think, 60 of those are local governments. Like I said, Greg Burns, who's not on the call today, and I lead the local government practice group, but our practice group is made up of several partners and senior VPs like Chaz and Jordan. Carmen's part of our team. We've also recently been joined by Vicki Cram and Pam Welsh from another firm. We've got Jessica Venable on hand, who handles our federal grants. And then just the entire team at Thorn Run that's got, more than a century, hundreds of years of combined experience working on behalf of local governments. Like I said, we've got about 50 to 60 local governments right now in Arizona, California, Colorado, Florida, a variety of states. Of course, we've got a pretty substantial footprint in South Carolina that we'll talk about in a little bit. Many of these clients, I still have some of the first clients that hired me nearly 25 years ago, which I hope speaks to, how I've been able to handle them. That's differing boards, differing city managers and so forth over time. We represent both large and small local governments, so smaller ones like yourself. And then we've got, of course, some very large cities, some substantial counties in Florida with, like Miami-Dade County. So we've seen the gamut of problems, both some of the most complex problems and some that are very particular to a geographic region. The team collectively, just in the local government space, has secured over approximately $5 billion in federal grants, congressionally directed spending, and various competitive awards for our local governments, which we certainly think speaks well to our abilities. But also we have numerous policy wins that we can talk about, which often a policy win can be just as impactful as an appropriation for a local government. The team, and this is very important, like most lobbying firms in town that are of our size, we're a bipartisan team, which you need to be to get things done in this town. We have a very collaborative structure, which I mentioned. In fact, every morning the entire team has a 9 o'clock call that we established over COVID and have kept doing since then, where we can share intel and various things that we've heard, in meetings and so forth, which keeps us all educated and is, mutually beneficial for all the firm's clients. We've got strong relationships with the White House. Of course, we've got strong relationships with your congressional delegation, which Chaz and Jordan will talk about a little bit. And given the fact that I've been representing local governments for almost 25 years, as well as my colleagues, there isn't one federal agency that I haven't set foot in on behalf of a local government to talk about a problem or pursue a federal grant or what have you. I think you saw, I think our proposal had some examples of our successes. Just in the last 3 years, we've secured $2.1 billion in federal grants and congressional earmarks. A lot of that's from the bipartisan infrastructure law, with some substantial grants for some of our clients. As well, with the return of earmarks, we've obtained about $400 million in congressionally directed spending for our clients. That does not include what's in the current FY25 bills. But, as I said, some of these policy wins and legislative wins that we might want to talk about are extremely impactful as well. As far as, approach and the scope of work, and maybe that's better to come out through Q&A. It's a multi-pronged approach to how we work with a local government. Very first thing we do is establish a federal agenda, path forward or strategy collectively together. So we all are, working from the same playbook, and we're all measuring the same level of success at the end. That federal agenda starts typically with either a trip to come visit you, or doing it this way where we can, learn from you about your projects. I like to, and my colleagues do, like to meet with department heads to talk about all the various aspects of, what their needs are, so we can develop a well-rounded, fairly robust federal agenda. Once that federal agenda is in place, we start to implement. And the implementation is a variety of ways. We're going to pursue congressional directed spending through your congressional delegation, which for you all is primarily Senator Graham. Federal grants through the agencies. We're going to work with your delegation and other members of Congress on beneficial legislation that might certainly impact your city. We can help you comment on federal rulemakings, which is something that a lot of our clients choose to do, and we can help you develop your comments and submit them. Of course, the engagement with your congressional delegation and federal agencies is highly important, and that's something we'll talk about as well. But in addition, because of the size of our firm and the bipartisanship, we also want to help you develop relationships that you wouldn't otherwise have. Now, I know you've already probably got relationships with your senators and your member of Congress, but we want to expand upon that and have you meet other members of Congress that could help with our objectives, as well as folks at the federal agencies, both political and career staff, to move your agenda forward. So with that, I'll ask my colleagues if they've got any more comments to add, or we can turn it over to Q&A.
I think you covered it, Jim. I do want Jordan to talk more about kind of the angle he converted from working for the governor in the past 7 years. And kind of, obviously, we're a federal firm and we handle that dynamic, but we can also be helpful as it relates to some of the state agencies and making sure that our federal funds are matching up with what the state's willing to give as well. So, Jordan, I don't know if you want to talk about.
Yeah, of course. So I moved back to South Carolina in 2018 to work for Governor McMaster. I spent a year working in Columbia for him. I moved to D.C. in 2019 to reopen our Washington, D.C. office, and then we shut it down back in 2010. So from 2019 to November 2024, I established the office. I worked directly with the congressional delegations, including Senator Graham, that I previously worked for. My job was to take 25 agencies and their priorities and go match up with what federal funding was available. So on IIJA, the big infrastructure bill, the governor appointed me the infrastructure coordinator for the state. So looking to identify what pots of money exists and how we can put that into our state planning, as well as getting support from the congressional delegation on our grants. Additionally, I played kind of the matchmaker. So when you have when the state allocated over $900 million to the Rural Infrastructure Authority for water and sewer projects, being able to know which county or locality was receiving a grant, a lot of times that amount of funding was not sufficient to cover the total project. So then being able to go to a congressional office, say, hey, look, the state's got skin in the game on this project. we only need an extra $1.5 million to get the project done. And making sure that the project aligns with the Department of Environmental Services. They receive all of our water sewer projects. And I know after working with the congressional delegation, very key to them when you're submitting a project or a congressional earmark is to know that the state is supporting you. So if that's a DOT project, they want to know that you got the okay from Justin Powell, the Secretary of Transportation. If it's a water and sewer project, they want to know that you got Meyer Reese. If it's a resiliency project, they want to know that you talked to Ben Duncan, the Office of Resiliency. So establishing that line of communication that, the congressional offices are somewhat mindful of all the requests that they receive and wanting to ensure that we're good stewards of the dollars and they know it's going to be appropriated in a way that's going to be able to be managed and also supported by the state efforts as well. In addition to that, they want to know that you explore all funding opportunities at the state level. So what those DES, resiliency, DNR, all the grant funding available at the state and local side, that we've explored that completely before we go and ask for congressional funding as well, to be complementary to those efforts. And after 7 years with the governor, I'm of course very familiar and have deep relationships with these state agencies.
Yeah, and our job is to get background on that, make sure that what you are asking for is feasible with these congressional offices. So to Jim's point, obviously we want to come down there and take a deep dive with you and your team, figure out what your needs are, and then we take it to the staff. To Jim's point, that would be Senator Graham's staff. There's only 3 total members of the South Carolina delegation that do congressional directed spending. Senator Graham, Jim Clyburn, and as of last year, Russell Fry. Obviously, Clyburn and Fry don't represent Isle of Palms, so our portion on this would be Senator Graham, where we have a great relationship. And so our job is to come out there, figure out what your needs are, and then take it to his staff and say, hey, listen, here's top 3 things that Isle of Palms might need. What is realistic? What are y'all interested in funding? Because at the end of the day, our job is to make the point of why they need to give federal money or use their pot of funds, give federal money to the Isle of Palms rather than give it to Darlington, South Carolina, or Jasper, South Carolina. They want to spread the money out all over the state, but you got to make a compelling case for it. And so if we can have those communications with the head of appropriations with Senator Graham's office and really massage the messaging on why this is needed and why this is beneficial to the community, all of that. So that's where we will come in and be helpful on that front.
And Chaz, I think you help us kind of talk about the line of communication we had in Senator Graham's office on the ability to negotiate during the entire process, whether make it.
Yeah, we have, I mentioned 10 entities in South Carolina, including the city of Charleston, just north of you, that's Marisa and Horry County, the College of Charleston's applying, as well as Rutherford Hospital in your area. So, when we're putting in these funding requests with staff, they might say, hey, listen, we've got too many requests in this pot of money. What if we move some of the money over here? What if we could give you some funding in this pot? There's 12 different pots of money. But having that open line of communication to be able to work that through is key, because, a lot of entities come up here, they put in one request. Obviously, that doesn't work for the senator's staff because they haven't done their due diligence. And so they're out of luck. But when we can put in a request, maybe we don't get 10 million. Maybe they say, hey, listen, we can only give you 2 million in this one. But we can also get you 3 more million in this pot. That's where we come in. And that's the relationship with Senator Graham's staff, and not only Graham's staff, but the entire delegation, including the federal congressional committees. That's where we come into play, and that's our job to do that for you.
All right, well, thanks for that overview. I know the group has some questions, so Linda, you might as well
Hi.
start out.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And my name's Linda Tucker, and I'm here at the request of Chris Jordan at Isle of Palms Water and Sewer Commission. So I represent really the Isle of Palms Water and Sewer side of this, although I'm a resident of the city of Isle of Palms and have a very strong civic interest. I want to tell you that I was very impressed with this part of your proposal. I liked very much the way you talked about specific successes in your proposal. And so congratulations on that, because I think it enabled the reader to go, well, this is the kind of thing we would need. So just wanted to compliment you on taking the time to put all of that in there. But I do have about 8 questions, and I tell you that so that you'll know to try to make your answers brief. One of the things that you indicated in the proposal was that you had a $217 million success an FY 2024 appropriation. And I just wondered if you know how much of that was directed towards South Carolina.
Are you talking about I don't have the proposal in front of me. Is it listed for a community or is it just?
No, it says 217 million in FY
Okay.
2024 funding package was, and I'm wondering what, talk about that related to South Carolina and whether or not
Sure.
what it did for South Carolina, any of that success.
And that's including all of our clients. Out of South Carolina, that is, and I know we got 7 for Roper. I think it's around 13 million of that went to South Carolina, over our clients in South Carolina.
Okay, all right, and then, I'm
There
sorry.
might be, if I can just interject for a minute, we just literally weeks ago got 7.5 million, and I apologize to Chaz, maybe this was not included.
No, it's
7.5. Yeah, 7.5 million for the city of Charleston for their Arches project, which is a stormwater system. That actually came through the disaster supplemental, and we assisted them with that, so that's probably not included in there.
It's not.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Also, I'm interested in a project that you detailed on page 3 of your proposal, where you secured 22 million, with over half of that 22 million going to actually reimburse a local government, a county, for the Palm Beach Protection Project. And I'm interested in hearing about that, because a reimbursement after something's already done, unless it was part of an original grant, is very unusual. And I know
Yes.
the city of Isle of Palms is facing a major beach restoration project and expense here very soon. And it sort of alerted me in my mind when I read it, well, does that mean there would be the possibility of the city moving forward with that and then getting some funding to reimburse themselves for it at a later date? So could you speak to that project a
Sure.
little bit?
Yeah, that's mine specifically, so I certainly can. And Palm Beach County is still a client. I was with them last week, in fact. So they have a project partnership agreement with the Army Corps of Engineers for their shore protection project. They've had that project partnership agreement in place for, a long time, decades. Most of those project partnership agreements, if you have them, will have a section that says, if the local government or the local sponsor wants to contribute towards the federal share of the project, they can do so, and we will reimburse you if we get the money to reimburse you. So you're always taking that risk of paying the federal share, and Palm Beach County did take that risk, and of course, they did it because they had to. They had to beef up their beaches. So I took them in to meet with the Army Corps of Engineers headquarters, and this is a while back, maybe 8 years ago or so. We pushed very strongly to get that funding, that reimbursement, and we ended up getting it. It was not an easy task, but there can be mechanisms. But I will tell you, in general, the federal government does not reimburse, so you've got to have some sort of contractual agreement with them that allows for it.
Okay, great. All right, another project that got my attention was in Charlotte County, Florida. You guys did a project called Septic to Sewer, and certainly that's something that this community is facing and is sort of, eating that elephant one bite at a time. And so I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about that project.
Sure. I can't specifically talk about that project, but I can talk about ones that are very similar. That's my colleague Greg Burns' client. I am doing something very similar down in Monroe County, down in Islamorada, which is the Florida Keys. As you can imagine, so they've been on septic for, since they built the Keys. And having septic tanks in the Florida Keys is not an ideal situation. They have overflows and so forth, and it was destroying the coral reef and the nearshore waters. So we developed a program, and we'll talk maybe more about these programs later, because it's probably a good idea for Isle of Palms. It's called Environmental Infrastructure Program. It's a very small program in the Army Corps of Engineers. We got an authorization for all these communities in the Florida Keys so that they could partner up with the Corps of Engineers to take themselves off septic and create a wastewater system. We did that. We started that program down there. I think it was 01 or 02 with a $100 million authorization. The federal share is $100 million. As of today, we're about at $93 million where we've given to those communities for that project. They're getting the rest through the state and the rest through the local share. And we just got that authorization increased from 100 to 200 million, so we can keep going after federal money in the future. The Corps has told us that it is one of the most successful environmental infrastructure projects in the country, so I'll take their word for it and be happy with that. Those programs are available. Of course, we can, that's one of those things we would look at when we come down and talk to you. Is this the right type of program for your community?
Okay, very good. Yeah, if you could just add maybe another 50 million to that, then yeah, we would be golden.
Yeah.
I also wanted to get you to speak to, I know that every time in your proposal you talked about Isle of Palms, I think it was a global Isle of Palms, and I wanted to make sure that you guys understood that in this particular cooperative situation, which we think is unique and we should brag about, you would basically, if you were to get this contract, you would be working for two separate elected bodies who basically have, a similar global mission, but their desires in terms of what they'd like to accomplish, let's say with a legislative agenda in the first day one for the first year, would be different. So can you speak to how you would manage that? Because you would not, since they might be paying for it equally, you would not want to be putting an unequal amount of effort into the contract.
Yeah, and just to clarify, we do understand that now. I think when we put in the proposal, that was not as clear, so we apologize for that, but we do understand that now.
So I have examples of very similar contracts. I've represented the city of Melbourne and the Melbourne Airport Authority in Florida. They've done a joint contract for years where, both, very similar. Both were paying in mutual objectives and also separate objectives. But the separate objectives were not in conflict with each other, if that makes sense. And I've got other contracts like that. I represent some joint powers authorities in California, which is, I don't know if you're familiar with JPAs, but it's basically several counties coming together and creating a separate special taxing district to do something on their behalf. So I represent some JPAs and then also the counties that are part of the JPAs. Again, they're not in conflict with each other. They've got mutual objectives, but also separate objectives as well. So very, very accustomed to doing it that way.
Okay. So I also was curious.
We have a kind of a similar. We have a similar situation in Horry County where we were hired to represent the county for their penny sales tax, the Ride 4 program. So we're mainly focused on transportation funding for the county. Meanwhile, they also have representation handling the public safety, the Army Corps, the environmental. So, and y'all are going to make fun of me for this, but it all comes down to, as the governor would say, communication, collaboration, and cooperation. 3 C's. Everyone's heard that.
Did you write that speech?
I know where that
So
goes.
I think that to Jim's point, you got to make sure that when you're making these requests, there's only a limited amount of funding within the congressional office. But that doesn't say you're completely going after grant funding as well. So sitting down and building out that agenda, what's the priority for this year? What's the big ask of Senator Graham? And then what could be another ask that we could do for a different priority through a discretionary grant program through an agency? Is how we're trying to work that in Horry County.
Does one have to be a client of TRP in order to have access to the tip sheet?
Yes.
I will say that we do have a marketing tip sheet, which is an abridged version that we send out to people who are considering contracts. We could chat about getting you on that list.
Yeah, we can get you on it. It's for potential clients for a certain amount of time, and then, of course, if you're a full client, you have access to all that. Not only that, but also our grant newsletter, We do a lot of memos around the local government space that you would all have access to.
I asked the question because I thought that I had access before to it for years, and there was not a contract with you all, so that's why I asked the question. So on page 12, and Councilman Ward asked this question, a similar question earlier, your proposal speaks to relationships with federal agencies, and I just wondered, with the recent upheaval with the heads of many of the federal agencies, what is your strategy or your plan? Are you going to wait and see? Are you going to use your influencer series? Are you going to proactively educate and indoctrinate the newbies, or just what is your plan in trying to handle that?
Why don't I start? It's a very uncertain time here. Like I said, I've been doing this almost 26 years, and I've never quite seen it like this. The short answer is we are still engaging. Last week I was at HUD, I was at DOT, 2 days ago I was at the VA, was actually at the White House last Friday, as Chaz knows. You have to continue to engage with the career staff, that of course are still there. You have to engage with the new politicals that are being appointed and taking jobs. It's imperative to continue to talk to them. Having said that, as someone who's done this a long time, I'm very sensitive as well to what the career staff is going through, and I've had those conversations with them. You want to make sure if you're going in there that there's a real reason. You want to make sure you've got an ask or an objective or something, because they are very busy people and you don't want to be wasting their time. So we are always keen on ensuring that if our clients are going to have or request one of those meetings, and I'm talking about if you'd like to go in, that we are well prepared with what we want to talk about, and well prepared in what we're hoping to get out of that meeting. So that's my comment. I don't know if my colleagues want to say anything further on that.
Yeah, no, we do have very good relationship with the Trump administration. We've had plenty of meetings over there even within the past month, as Jim outlined. So there are new faces, there are new heads of these agencies, but a lot of the political staff are coming from Capitol Hill, a lot of the political staff are coming from Republican offices on the Hill, both in the House and Senate, where we have relationships. So being able to navigate that and get to the right person is again why we're a federal lobbying firm.
The last question that I have is, have you guys done any research to be able to indicate to prospective clients like us what the return on investment is for clients? I mean, for a community this size, a contract like this is significant. And so, what could elected officials and commission members tell their constituents about what to expect in return on investment for a sizable contract?
Yeah, that's a difficult question, but I'm going to do my best to answer it. I know with certain clients that have, asked us to go back and look at what we've done for them, maybe over a 2-year, 4-year, 10-year period. We are certainly able to measure what they paid us versus what they've obtained. And of course, we want to make sure that they agree that what they've obtained is because of us. And they will probably see 10 times or more, at least, in a return. If you're talking about 1 year, I think if you, and I don't recall who our references are, but we've retained a number of clients over the last year that are in that category of those that have received federal funding that are in our proposal. City of Bloomington, Denver Regional Council of Governments. Denver Regional Council of Governments retained us a year and a half ago, and we helped them with a $200 million EPA grant. So, I think we probably paid for ourselves for 20 years. I think we usually like to say it's about 1.5 to 2 years to really, to really measure how we're doing. But we want to be open and honest about that. So we all, and I said at the beginning, as we develop our federal agenda and we have our marching orders, we all want to be bought into the same objectives so we know what the goal is and that we all agree that the goal has been achieved or the ball has been moved forward. Again, I've had clients for 20 years and, I haven't been fooling those clients for 20 years. I think they agree that, we've done some real good for them. The harder things to measure are the policy impacts, which don't necessarily have a dollar associated, but have maybe opened up opportunities for them that they'd never had. I was able to work on behalf of the Los Angeles County Office of Education. They're a long client of mine. They've got the largest Head Start. They are the largest Head Start provider in the country. During COVID, we led an effort to add SNAP as automatic eligibility to Head Start. We did it for them, but in fact, when we changed the policy, it did it for the entire country. So even the Head Start operators in your state now have that access. How do you measure that?
Right.
I can't measure that. I don't know what that did, but it probably got a bunch of kids on Head Start that didn't have it before. So those are the types of policy wins that I don't know how you put it in an ROI, but the client was really happy.
Thank you. I'm sorry, someone's talking.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it seemed to indicate in your proposal that if your two clients here were to go and select you all, that there would be no additional expense for any travel or anything like that, that it would be all inclusive. So there wouldn't be any additional bills for anything like that. I just wanted to verify that because in terms of budgeting, both entities would need to make sure that engaging these services, what impacts there would be on their budget, not just for the contract, but maybe for any overages like travel.
Yeah, the only thing outside of that would be if we were to come down there or, have to fly down there and meet with you all. But any of the work that we're doing in DC, be it meals, printing, taxis, anything like that, that's all inclusive price. So, no, you would not be billed and as we outlined in the proposal, that number is that number. It won't change unless we have to tack on a couple flights to fly down there, which we would get your approval first.
If I could just ask one tag on it. So while we're on the fees, what is included in your proposal, though, beyond the advocacy? Is grant writing and those type of fees also included?
The governor's office, we would help with that. Congressional policies and congressional spending earmark stuff. We will identify grants for you. I'm not sure what the situation
Well, if there's a grant, is your fees inclusive of all the way up at whatever is required for us to get the funding? Or is saying, okay, we've identified an opportunity, so now we're going to you need to go write a grant, and oh, by the way, we can help you, and here's the extra cost to do that. I just want to understand what's included and what's not.
Sure. Why don't I speak to that for a minute? Typically, the one thing we don't do with grants is actually write it, but we will do editing and review. We will do all the upfront stuff, and let me explain that for a minute. We put out a grant alert that's approximately every 2 weeks. Actually, Carmen's here in the room, and she leads up that effort. In addition to our grant alert, if there's specific grants that are that you're the only local government that would care about, we're going to make sure you've got that right away. Also, upfront stuff that is very critical, and we were talking about meetings with federal agencies. Getting you into a federal agency in advance of a grant solicitation is very important. If we know that you want to go after that grant and you think you've got something good, we want to bring you in to meet with the program officers, the civil servants that actually are responsible for putting that grant out on the street. Because if they get to know you a little bit before you're just any other applicant that submits a grant application and they remember you, it can go a long way in helping you achieve success. But also, I find in those meetings that you'll often glean some information from them that you won't find in the solicitation. You'll get some sort of feedback or nugget of information from a federal official that's going to help you write a better grant application. In the writing process, we'll help you do the review and editing. If you wanted us to write it, we could talk about that, and yes, that would be a separate fee. But often, in my case, I have found that the local government is better suited to write it because you've got all the information in front of you and you know your stuff better than we do. And we'll also go and get that letter of support from your members of Congress. You know, if we think you've really got a good shot at this grant, our guys here that are in the conference room are going to ask Senator Graham or Congresswoman Mays to put in a phone call to the federal agency and, you know, help you support it. We often, we'll write some talking points for them on what they need to say. We can also meet with the politicals after the fact to advocate for your grant. We cannot meet with the actual reviewers though, because that's an ex parte communication. So those are the types of things we'll do. And if you're unsuccessful, we will help you arrange a debrief with the federal agency. Those debriefs are very important as well. I've had clients that have gone through federal grant opportunity 2 or 3 times in a row until they've actually achieved it. One of them was the city of Wichita. They got a $21 million build grant, but we had to go through it like 2 or 3 times. That involved meetings with DOT and debriefs. And the debriefs, they learned, okay, here's where we fell short, and here's where we need to do a better job next time. So we'll cover all those components except that little piece on the writing.
All right, thank you. Any other questions?
Good.
I'm good. All right, well, I want to thank you for taking the time this afternoon, or no, it's still this morning. And I think that's it. We'll be back with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
Nice
you.
to meet you.
Sounds good.
Have a great day.
Thank you very
Thank
much. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to be here.
So I don't know where we want to go with this. Do we want to have a discussion on what next steps may be after the interviews?
Are you all, ultimately, out of this group, we were hoping to get a recommendation for council. I don't know if you're at that point now, or if you want to think on it, review the information more.
I don't know, where is water and sewer? Are you ready to make a recommendation?
I'm happy to make some comments
Yeah.
if that would help. I think I was a little surprised on the fee with some of the questions that we asked here at the end. It certainly seemed like the fees quoted by the first group would provide more services. While I liked some of the projects that were detailed by the second group and could be excited about some of those, I don't know that the first group couldn't also ferret out those same things. So there also seemed to be, and maybe it's the difference in being in person with a group and being one-dimensional on a screen, but I felt like the first group exuded a lot of confidence about, about what they could accomplish. So that's just a couple of comments.
I guess my comments are, at just a very high level, I feel like the second group is probably better suited to get specifically what we want done. I think they have a stronger South Carolina connection, which I think is very important, even though it's federal lobbying with our federal delegation. More direct experience with it, but I don't like their fees.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a decision whether,
And that's a significant difference.
It is a significant difference, and one of the things may be, if that's the general consensus, is to go back to them and say, hey, we like you, but your fees aren't too high relative to what other offers are.
I'm with that train of thought. I'm mirroring exactly what y'all said.
Yeah.
The fees are thing to Bobby, that South Carolina connection is really important.
Mhm.
You know, they've been in the governor's office, they seem to have a really, both of them seem to have a good relationship with Senator Graham, but the second one,
More
just a little pricey.
proactive, maybe. I don't know. I just liked their approach, and that it seemed to focus more on the relationships, but that they would help us. Well, that came across pretty strong.
So I don't know if
But
you,
yeah.
do you feel that way as well? Are you, with that approach, is where we go back to them and try to negotiate, and at the end of the day, we can come back with, with that answer and then make a final decision.
Yeah, I would just want to add one thing for you to think about. I think that, and I don't really have they both presented outstanding proposals, and they both are obviously very capable. But it seems to me like the city and the Water and Sewer Commission already have a very strong position within the state of South Carolina. Within the state of South Carolina, both the commission and the city is highly respected. They also know all the players. The city has been successful in getting state grants. The Isle of Palms Water and Sewer has been successful in getting state grants. So you have to ask yourself, what are you trying to achieve here? Which I think, if I heard correctly, was more trying to improve the same kind of success that you've had on the state level to have it on the federal level.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to look at the two firms and go, okay, so which one is stronger to give us, which one is stronger in that niche, in the DC niche?
Yeah, agree.
So that's just something to think about when you're looking at this big difference in money. I kind of went in my head, that must mean they're trying to fund a person, because that's such a significant difference in money and fewer services offered compared to the first one. And I'm just offering that as things, information for you to think about.
We had a third one too, right?
Yes.
And I think it was more in line, I don't know, I forget where that
It
was.
was in the middle.
but,
Here it is.
Yeah, okay.
So top one.
Yeah, so one's low, one's high, one's in the middle.
Yeah.
And so, but I do tend to agree with you, but that's why I wanted to ask the question around how you're successful with federal funding. And really, it goes back to being strong in your state with your state delegation, because if they're not behind it, you're not going to get it. And that's why I think, although they're not strong in state politics necessarily in our House and our Senate, but they are very strong with our delegation and have experiences on how to get things through for South Carolina more than the other firm. That was my only comment. But can the first firm do it? I think so. I just felt more comfortable with the second one.
Well, my experience working with consultants is that sometimes there's a possibility, if you start negotiating on price, then there's an unintended consequence where you'll be negotiating on services down the road, because there's a possibility they could hold that a little resentment. Or if they lower it, then they're going to come back the second year and try to jack it up, unless you have a multi-year contract. This may not be the case, but that's my experience.
The only main difference was one firm helped write the grants and they don't. I mean, that's really essentially it. So we just would need
Yeah.
somebody to be able to do that. And it seemed like they were willing to help and kind of guide that along. I'm not sure.
It's really important to have somebody write
Yeah,
it.
yeah, for sure.
I don't have time, do you?
I don't know, Chris, what were your instincts about it? There's that.
I mean, the difference between the cost was significant, but, the first firm, they kind of all inclusive offered all the services. I mean, I don't know how to write a grant that's going to be successful. I mean, we had you help us with the one, yeah. So, I mean, both firms are well qualified. I think either one of them would do a good job. It's just that the cost difference was what I saw,
Yeah.
the difference.
Yeah, I guess from my perspective, and the Ferguson group does offer the ability to write the grant, but you do pay in addition for that service, so it's not covered in there, in that
Yeah, that's
basic
what they
service.
Build that cost into the grant.
Yeah, they could,
Yeah,
that you
they
could,
do that, yeah.
you could get reimbursement.
There's their total, including it.
We have had, the city has had success with a third-party grant writer. It's typically what we've done. Some really small ones we go for internally, but we do generally hire out going for those grants. So probably if we were to go with Thorn Run, and I guess you all know that Thorn Run is the firm that has a connection to our existing state lobbyist firm, so I think that,
Correct.
I mean, there would be a little bit, I don't know how much kind of overlap those firms would have, but I think that would be a little bit of more of a kind of one-stop shop thing when we create our priorities, our lists. We're giving it to the state lobbyists and the federal lobbyists kind of together. Having said that, the Ferguson Group really came to us originally through our stormwater master plan consultant, who then also did our sea level rise adaptation plan. They've had tremendous success in Mount Pleasant, Beaufort, and Sherrill with the Ferguson Group, so they were kind of over the moon about them and their abilities. So kind of, I think where the group is landing would be the same place I would land, that I think one is probably tied to us already at the Thorn Group through our existing lobbyist, but they're at a premium. So I don't know if that additional cost is justified by that convenience or kind of synergy that we might get through their connection with our existing firm. Would be happy to, and we've done this on some of the city's contracts where we will kind of go back to the number one choice and say, hey, we'd prefer to enter into an agreement with you, but your pricing is just beyond what we are willing to pay at this point. Are you willing to negotiate down? If not, I think the city would be in a good place with either firm. So that could be kind of a
That's kind of
strategy.
exactly where I am. If we don't ask the question, we don't know, and then we make a decision after we get it.
Yeah.
What do you think about, before making a decision, bring the thing to the workshop?
Yeah, we would.
And bring, of course, the water on the commissioners.
Yeah.
Commission, at least the commission, these two, over to discuss.
I think that's a good idea, and in fact, we have a meeting on Tuesday,
Yes.
and may be able to go back and get the answer on the pricing by then, and we can have
Right.
that discussion at workshop.
Yeah.
So just a discussion at workshop, not a recommendation from this group yet. We would just bring them up to speed, and then with the plan of this group reconvening in April and making a final recommendation. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah.
Okay. We can do that.
And I think we get an indication from full council at workshop too, kind of where their thought is.
Yeah.
And Yep.
Can you give me the date of that and the time?
The 12th, I believe it is.
That's the budget meeting. You mean the
Yeah,
workshop or
would
the
be
budget workshop?
11th,
The 11th is the workshop workshop.
11th at 5.
Yeah. You're talking about the workshop, Lynn? Yeah.
Whenever you guys expect the next
Yeah.
discussion.
Yeah,
of-
workshop is on the 11th at 5.
Thank you. I want to make sure I get that on my calendar.
In between now and then, I'll reach out to the Thorn Run group and talk over pricing. If you all want to be there, happy for that.
Yeah, I think it's probably good. The apples to apples number is like 72,000, right? You subtract the grant writing out of one. So it's gonna be a big swing from 150 from 72 to
Yeah.
150 in terms of negotiating.
Okay,
Good.
thank you.
Thank you.
You need the
Yeah.
break?
I'm just gonna miss it. They're here on vacation. They might call me up and give me, so fuss at me a little bit, but I'm not gonna hold up the work of the committee. I should have,
We may be
planned
able-
another hour.
We may be able to get done here.
Maybe,
between that stuff.
we'll see. You going back to item 2?
Yeah, item 2, so election of the vice chair.
I had some thoughts on it, like we'll talk with you about it and talk with you in public, in that we have 3 committees, standing committees for city council. We have 8 council members to fill those seats. And so, you know, you're the chairman of public safety, correct?
Correct.
And you're also on 2 committees, correct?
Correct.
And there's, everybody else is on 1 committee. It's not a big deal, but I would just want to ask you if you consider, since Philip said, it was really kind of off the record, he said, well, we're gonna make you vice chair. And we're gonna make you vice chair, but then you'll be chairman when I walk off and Ashley comes on board. And I just wanted to know if you would consider putting the position of chair up for election to the committee.
And just because you don't feel it's right to have me as chairman of 2 committees.
Basically,
Yeah.
yeah. I just
Yeah.
think that everybody got elected with the premise that the voters elected everybody, they're immediately qualified to be chairman of a committee. And I just because you would be chairman of 2 of the 3 committees. It's, like I said, it's not a big deal. I'm just wanting to put that out
Jimmy,
there.
there's
to
a,
you.
there's a lot of divisiveness in this, going on in this community and on, in our council.
I understand that.
And I'll just say, in a spirit, if that's the way you feel, in the spirit of trying to bridge that divisiveness, I'll agree to do that. It's not something I feel that's important. I'm still going to be a very active part of this committee.
Very much.
But if you feel that strongly about it, and Ashley feels that strongly about it, I would, I'd be happy to make one of you other chair, but that's,
Okay.
it's up to you.
Well, I'd like to nominate Ashley. If she doesn't accept the nomination, I'm going to nominate you. Because I don't want it.
I do think procedurally, the nomination of chair isn't on the agenda.
Yeah. So we can do it at next
Do
meeting,
it next meeting where you
and skip the vice chair? Yeah, you're right, that is true, or we can add it.
You can add it.
Suspend the rules of order? You think we'll get in trouble? Oh, you probably, yeah.
All right, well, we'll do it next meeting.
Okay, well, you're just, we'll just say you're acting chair for this meeting, then we'll continue on, we'll do it we'll put it on the agenda for the April meeting.
Do both in April.
Yeah, you agree, Ashley?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, the new business, we got the 10-year capital plan. We didn't do 3, right? So we got to approve previous meeting minutes, February 4th.
No, you did that.
We did that?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll talk to her.
The new business, review 10-year capital plan. The capital plan is in the packet. Deborah, do you want to cover that?
Yes, sir. So in the interest of time, I'm just going to hit the highlights because we will have a budget meeting next Wednesday. But this, included in this year's FY26 budget, we are budgeting $100,000 that of the $325 for forest trails that will not be spent in FY25. So we're carrying $100,000 over to FY26. We are planning to reconfigure the the upstairs conference room on the mayor's side of the building to add some office space for the new positions that the city is going to acquire. And the city is also planning to do some major foregone repairs and maintenance to this current building that we are residing in until the council makes a decision on whether to completely renovate it or to build a new city hall. And that's $125,000 that will be split, $125,000 each for general government as well as building
So
department.
what is that for specifically, though? It's $250,000. That's not to redo the conference room upstairs, or is that what that's for?
No, I think that's the next line item.
Right, the
Okay.
50,000
So
is to
this
do
just-
upstairs.
The 250 is just for for some kind of shoring up this building, for lack of a better term, to be able to last into the future itself for some period of
Kind of
time.
some
All right,
Band-Aids all the way around
Yeah,
to just
yeah.
get it kind of safe.
yeah. All right.
Could you explain to me the note that says assume debt of $4 million in fiscal year '27?
Yes, so that amount, that $4 million had been in the budget to do a major renovation on this building in FY '25.
20, yeah, yep,
It was supposed to happen in '26.
right.
We did, we had some money in this budget for some planning and designs that we have spent in FY '25. But the '27 is just the $4 million that was kind of approved last year to do a major overhaul. Now, that is still on the budget.
Yeah.
That will be discussed in the budget meeting to see if we still want to do that $4 million. It's in our debt service area, debt service
But
section.
and I'm glad you asked the question, but if you go to we'll get to this next, but if, it looks like it's in the debt service of 25.
25?
Excuse me, 26.
It should not be. There is some debt service in there,
It says FY
but
'26 includes as VC, and 50% debt service on City Hall renovation construction. GO bond $4 million in FY '27, so it's at 50%.
for 27
Yeah.
though.
It said 26. But my whole point is that we shouldn't include both in 26 budget. We should only include one, right?
Right. Maybe I need to reword the note, but it's not included, it shouldn't be included in 26,
Well,
only
we'll get to
27.
that when we get to the next, on the next page, because the debt service is going up, though, so I'd just like to understand why it's going up so much. I mean, the principal's just on, well, we can get to it next, but in the capital plan, I think what we have is for this year, or for this budget cycle, we have $250,000 to redo, but we don't have anything for the $4 million in this budget cycle.
That's correct,
So it's okay.
All right.
that's correct. So those are the major items for capital,
All right.
and
All right.
you can, as a council, can decide whether we leave it on there in the debt service for future years, or whether we
Today's a
we just
review.
need
It's-
some direction.
You're not actually asking for a vote today, it's just a review, correct?
This is just review.
Yeah.
Correct, okay.
All right.
Comments from these meetings are making it into the first draft to be looked at on the 12th.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
the comments are useful.
And for the capital, I think I'm okay if you are
Yeah.
with the way it's laid out now.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah. But then,
We
if we
just
go
need
to the,
clarification, and we got it.
yeah, if we go to the next item, then it's review of the operational budget for general government and building, which is pages 6 to 15 of the packet.
Which line is that, John?
No, that's just the whole, the
Okay.
next one is the whole
Okay.
operational budget.
Okay, all right, so
Yeah,
we'll move
yeah.
through general government first.
Right.
The biggest change in general government is payroll. Payroll includes the financial analyst full-time for 12 months, a beach preservation resilience person for 12 months, and it also includes increased salary for a city admin and of course a deputy administrator, which I will need to get some final numbers on where those numbers are gonna land. Right now, I just have numbers in of what
Yeah,
I,
Deborah, I got a question on this too, that's like I did yesterday, but in this particular case, you do have a forecast for 25 in there, and it's increased quite a bit from what the budget was, so well, quite a bit, that's $30,000. Is that just on increase, there's no additional heads in there, right? That's showing the forecast for 25 versus where the budget was?
No, there's no additional.
So it's
no.
just from salary, over budgeted increases in salary, pay
Well,
increases?
I'll double check and see what that is, but, see why it increased.
Okay.
I think I bumped it up to assume that to assume that these positions would be filled in this
Okay.
year.
All right, some
But I'll-
positions, yeah.
yes,
Yeah, okay,
but
got you.
I'll double check.
And then going to to the budget, you're saying that there is two additional people, the financial analyst, the resilient and beach manager, plus the increases in the city administrator pay. Are you saying there's also something in there increased on the assistant city administrator?
No, there's no increase.
Okay.
It's
Just the city administrator?
Right,
Yeah.
and these are at 2.5% COLA and 3% merit.
Okay.
You asked me about state yesterday. State was 7% for FY '25 budget. They have not released what they are going to budget for COLA for this year.
All right.
But it was 7% for FY '25's
Yeah.
budget.
And then I got you. So it's a 36% increase in salaries, overall salaries from budget to budget,
Yes, sir.
all right?
52, with those changes.
Yep.
For the debt service of 71,000, that is, so I think that's the debt service maybe you were looking at?
That's one of them I was looking at, it's in here, there's another place too, but yeah, that's it, that's what I'm looking at. It goes up 71,000, but I believe some debt's falling off
So
in
that-
January 26 for the Fire Station 2 bond.
Right, but there's a payment that will take place in the first half of FY '26.
Right.
So it doesn't fall off until
January,
the
yeah,
second half.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
So,
that falls off, but it's going up by 72,000. That's why I think that $4 million bond's in there, or some
so
portion
let
of it.
me tell you exactly what's in. All right, so there is, I think these are. Sorry, I should have this. Okay, so this is debt service for public safety building. Public safety building is $425,000. It's 40% of the fire station, and 40% of the fire station is 110. And then it's includes the public safety building, I think, is that something else in there, I think?
Mhm.
I think it includes the drainage at 222,000. So between those three numbers, as well as what we have, the $15,000 that we have to, how the books, how Gatsby makes us record, subscription-based software, that those numbers should add to what's in there. So we got, did you do math, those? We got 110 plus 425 plus 222 plus 15, $772,000. What do I have?
772.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So that's what those three numbers are. There's no city hall in there. It's just those three numbers. And when you see, when you get, you guys haven't seen this page yet, but you know at the end of your
I want to get
capital-
just a whole thing of our debt, the summary of our debt, I
And you-
think, yeah.
Right, and you
Yeah.
normally see it on this
Right.
page of the capital sheet.
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet, yeah.
And the note says it falls off in January 26, but you still, it's falling off, but that is a last full year of payment.
Right.
So that you don't actually see any savings until
FY '27.
FY '27. So no payments actually falling off until the next year.
Debt service schedules also in the notes to the audited financial statements. And the current portion is due in the next year of the principal.
Yeah, but we need to see what ties to this budget, too.
Correct.
That's what
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that'll be on here, and I'll color code it so you can see which heading is
Yeah.
what departments. And then the negative $26,000 on line 25. This year, we budgeted for $30,000 of email conversions to be spent in FY '25. We don't need that in FY '26, so that will come off. I'm still waiting on actual number from VC3 to tell us what our overall picture will be. Right now, it is $255,000. That's how much we pay each year for service. I don't know how much that is changing, because I know with this email conversion and all the other stuff we've done this year, there will be some movement that's going to be fluid until they give me some information on that. But I left that number in there so we'll at least have a base. I'm increasing line 35 because we had a single audit last year in FY '25. We will have a single audit again this year in FY '26 because of all the government money that we're using, all the grant monies that we will be using. Next year is, let me see, there's $10,000 in there for election. We spent $8,000 this year for a special election, and the way the budget reads is it's supposed to be budgeted in every even year. So I put $10,000 in there since we spent $8,000 this year. It kind of looks like where the fees that we were charged for that. We increased our incentive program to get people healthier, just offering some more benefits or incentives to employees for them to get active, in hopes to decrease our health insurance premiums.
Can I just ask a question back on the, we don't have anything in for the federal lobbyists, right?
No,
So
sir.
based
because
on what we decide, we're gonna have to
Put something in
essentially
here.
put that in this line item here is on contracted services.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then professional services, why are we running so high on line 35, Deborah? Do you know? I mean, we
Okay.
budgeted 85, we're 131.
Oh, that's the one with the single audit.
The single audit's very
Yes.
expensive.
Yes.
That's about,
And
that
federal-
usually doubles the audit fee.
Okay, and so so the net change in general government is about $300,000, which we can contribute the majority of that to payroll.
Yeah.
Which I'll look at and see what's causing that overage for forecast. On the building, I think that's where we are now. No? No, we're still in general. Okay, so under line 51, major repairs and maintenance, that is the $125,000 that is budgeted for this building. That, all capital rolls over into the operating budget, so that is $125,000 there. The $150,000 on 53 is for the remaining flood mitigation and office space. So it was 100 for mitigation, 50 for office space. Under line 58 and 59, this is our Rentalscape STR software. It is under principal and interest because that's the way the GASB required that we record it. So it moved from IT, so you see that $50,000 credit is where it was, and now it's in principal and interest. We increased our line 68, the wreaths that was hung this year for Christmas. That was an additional cost to have those done, and that cost was about $7,900, so we added $8,000 to the budget for that. In our hospitality tax, line 74 and 75, that debt service includes the Public Works side loader. That's supposed to be purchased in FY '26. So on the debt schedule, when you see the debt schedule, you'll see a line for that side loader that breaks out principal and interest on that. So that's 65,000 there, and 9,000 on interest. Line 87, of course, that was City Hall for FY '25. We are not using that in state funds, so that's a savings of removal of $108,000. Line 88 is based on the revenues we receive from the state aid tax.
Why is the budget down though? Aren't we increasing revenues?
So this is 90, we're forecasting 1,097,000 and, so in that, we have, we take out the public relations, part of the public relations salary because that shows in a separate line as a transfer. And then we add $15,000 for the T-shirts.
Yeah, I was just looking at year over year though. I mean, are we suggesting that revenues from tax revenues going down?
Well, it's budgeted at 90%, and that, you know, what we've historically done, the
Yes.
previous year's revenues, just
So-
be conservative.
Right.
Yeah, and we're down, and we're down 3%, right, on this budget. But I just checked the math, and, I mean, it should match going up or down based on whatever revenues on ATAX are doing,
Right.
I think.
They should, and I think because those other factors are in there, it's not the exact 5%. Because we have the salary reduction and the T-shirts in there. So it's not the exact 5% of what revenues are. But I'll double check the formula to make sure.
Okay. Very good.
Okay, now we're on, I don't know what page this is on your line, but it's court.
Yep.
The biggest change in here is an increase in the judge's salary. We increased both salaries for both judges. Both judges are taking advantage of the health plan the city offers, so that increases from both what the city pays on behalf of their families. The legal fees on line 25 are increasing because that's where all of our legal fees are recorded. And since the city has had an abundance of legal fees, we felt like we needed to increase that line.
Can we say more about the judges? You're recommending that we increase the salaries of the.
Yes,
Cool.
we're
So that would-
recommending.
So if we approve this as part of the budget, we're approving their salaries increase, is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That was
Is it actually a salary increase, or it's the fact that they're taking advantage of, which they haven't previously done, taking advantage of our offer of health insurance for the families?
two different things.
Yeah.
So it is their salaries are increasing.
Yes, there was a
Yeah.
recommendation from our clerk of court that we would increase their salaries.
It was an additional court.
Oh,
We need additional court for parking. So we're gonna have to have more courts, that's what that was for. That's why we added more money, because they'll be here more, since we're gonna have more courts for parking, if all that parking goes through.
Not higher wages?
No,
Okay,
just an additional.
that's good, yeah. And I understand the medical piece, what's going on, but yeah.
I'll change the note to reflect that, did I?
Yeah, of course, all of this is subject to full council's approval.
So this is additional parking court.
It's one additional day a month, correct, Amy?
Yeah.
We also included in this budget to include an interpreter,
Well,
just for those that don't speak English, they can have someone there to be able to interpret what is happening when they're in court. And that's in this budget as well. I think it's,
Is that professional service?
that's under professional services, it should
Yeah,
be.
interpreter?
Yes, added $100 per court at 36 courts. No, that's just an estimate, we're not sure. We feel like we can find somebody that will do it for $100 per court. The building and planning, the only really big thing in theirs is, of course, there are some minor increases throughout their budget for meetings and conferences. But the largest thing is just $125,000 in repairs and maintenance on line 43 for the building repairs, the major repairs and maintenance for this building.
Yep.
So theirs is $93,000 to the bottom line increase.
All right.
That's all I have.
Any
Okay.
questions? Thank you. I think there's an item C that says discuss developing a means to show appreciation for prior long-serving council members. I think this is you, Jimmy.
Yeah. So when somebody finishes their term, or they decide they're not gonna run for reelection, or they don't win reelection, the city always gives them a little plaque. Do they put on the dates of service on the plaque? Is that on the plaque?
I believe it is.
Yes.
It is. Because I remember my first term, 88 to 91, they gave me a plaque, but they misspelled my name. So
Easy name to
Pretty easy.
spell. I don't know how we-
They've said James W. Ward, and it's James M. Ward, James
Oh.
Manley Ward, you know? So it kind of went into the bottom drawer. But I was thinking that, the mayor and I were talking a couple of months back, it was like, how can we, it's a thankless job, we all know that, and we sign up for it, and nobody's asking for any praise or pity or anything like that. But in some small way, could we show appreciation to people that take time away from their families and their jobs and whatever, and give back to the city by maybe a small gesture of appreciation? Like I was thinking, like a pin with the palm tree on the city crest. We just after 10 years, it'd be like a silver little plate put across it. A little lapel pin says 10 years, 20 years for somebody that's been, and that one would be gold. This was just my idea. And I talked to a couple of council members that served for 20 years, and they said that would be kind of nice because it, you know, it's just a small thing. It should not be a major priority. But I thought I would like bring it up to this committee and see if it had any legs, if y'all thought it was a good idea or not. And, you know, I'm really flexible about how the whole thing is carried out and how it's implemented, if it's implemented at all. But my initial thought was after 10 years and then after 20 years. So we recognize the employees of the city, which is a really great thing to do. That's a 5-year service, 10, and the employee appreciation event every fall. So I just thought maybe I'd bring it up to you folks and see what you thought about that, because it is, it's a rather difficult job. And also, just in case that you're thinking that maybe I was looking for a pen myself, I would also say that you're only eligible when you're finished. You know, so, but you know, like Linda, no, not Linda, but Mike Satilli, he had a long time serving as mayor and as of councilman. I think Mayor Cronin was at 9 years or something. Maybe we could have it exception or something. But it's just a little thing to kind of build morale within the council, and I'll turn it over to you folks and see what you think, if you have any comments at all.
And possibly do it like by 2 terms, that way it's kind of like, 10 years is 2.5 terms, which would be,
Right.
you gotta get elected 3 times, maybe, just a thought, but, it sounds like I'm on board with it. I don't know how we award that or whatever they want to receive, but, yeah.
Sort of the council meeting, I would
Yeah.
think. And, it'd be very little cost, and I think, I think Ryan Buchanan has served a long time, Marty Patelli served a long time. You think of any others that served a long, D. Taylor, but who knows where he is?
He's in Mount Pleasant.
He's what?
He's in right across the bridge. I just saw him.
Across the bridge.
Okay.
So would you like to recommend something or talk about it again and kind of think about what the award would be and more details about it, or?
Yeah, I
next
just
time,
wanted,
or-
yes, sir, I just wanted to
Yeah.
introduce it,
Yeah.
and I'll come up with specific
Yeah.
guidelines and with input for both of y'all.
Yeah.
For the April meeting, but I think Ashley's idea of 2 terms is good. It's,
One for 2 terms, one for 4 terms, is that kind of,
yeah,
I don't know,
definitely.
I don't know if anybody was 4 terms, maybe Mike.
Or maybe just, I don't know.
I think Ryan served 20 years, I think Marty did too,
Okay,
so that'd be 5 terms.
5 terms.
But,
How long did Jimmy serve?
Jimmy was, together 10 years, I believe. He had 6 years on council and 4.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, we'll talk about it in April. But,
Okay. All right, we'll put it back on the agenda.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right. I guess we're at 7, miscellaneous business. Next meeting is April 1st at 1 o'clock.
You think that's a great idea,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman?
All right, no further business.
Motion to adjourn.